the top 10 employee engagement ideas. So I'm Rachel, I'm going to be your webinar chairperson today, and delighted to be joined by two brilliant speakers. Welcome to his first webinar, Richard Roberts from Enrich HR. Welcome, Richard.
Welcome, delighted to be here.
Fab, and for people who missed your introduction, would you like to give another one?
I'll give it might be better this time. I basically lead a bit of a double life. So half my time, I'm actually the HR director for a company called Pure Planet, which is a renewable energy supplier in the UK. And the other half is actually I'm a freelancer, a consultant. So I go into organizations and help them with employee engagement and culture. My early career has all been based in call centers and in HR. And indeed, I spent 10 years working at Virgin Mobile, where at its height, we had a call center of 1,000 seats. So that's my background.
Both sides. Well, delighted to have you here today. I'm looking forward to your presentation shortly. And welcome back to Mike Murphy from Genesis. Hopefully no introduction really needed, but I'm sure you'd like to give one for Genesis as well.
Thanks, Rachel. Yes, I mean, great to be here, and another one.
Yes.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. But yeah, I'm Mike. I work at Genesis. I've been at Genesis quite a while. My role is kind of about it's customer facing. I like customer facing. So from that perspective, that's what I enjoy doing. I have a responsibility for onboarding new customers, and I've got a responsibility for looking after existing customers. So I've got a nice sort of split to kind of help feed my content to webinars like today. And yeah, I've kind of been in this area for quite a while. So I've had the privilege, if you will, of being in the contact center area for over 2 decades. But I think what excites me about the space really is the change and the pace of change and the amount of change. And clearly right now we're going through massive change. So it's interesting and I love it.
Brilliant. Well, welcome both of you. So going on to a bit of housekeeping. Oh dear. Just a reminder that we are running a discussion alongside in our chat room, callcenterhelper.com/chat, or you can just use the short term cch.chat. It is in a separate window, but hopefully you can put them side by side and have the presentation on one side, or else you can actually put the chat room into your mobile phones. So a few added bonuses of being in the chat room is that you can download a copy of both our speaker slides. Lots of information in there, so definitely worth downloading them and following along. And also you have access to our quiz buttons, which will come in between the two presentations, and I will introduce that a bit later. Actually, just a reminder that we are taking a recording of today's webinar, and that will be available later on this afternoon on callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. This is what I was expecting. So another added bonus of being in the chat room is that we are running our traditional prize for a best tip. You can win a box of chocolates, champagne, or an Amazon gift card. You just need to use #question to ask our panel a question, or #tip to share your top tips for employee engagement ideas. So before we begin, I'd like to ask our first poll. So let's see if I can get this one up. So launching it. So the question is, how would you rate the level of employee engagement in your organization? Now, is it excellent? Is it good? Is it reasonable? Poor or very poor? Richard, what were you hoping to see?
I would expect to see, I've done this poll before on other webinars, something hopefully reasonable, but kind of either side, good or poor. If they're very poor, then just let me know and I'll come and help.
Okay, so I will end the poll and share the results. So 6% of people saying excellent, 33% saying good, 49% saying reasonable, 13% saying poor, and sadly for you, Richard, nobody say very poor. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Mike, what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's good, and thanks audience for the feedback. It's really helpful. But it's interesting. I talking to other brands, if you like, about the sort of like the recent events. It's interesting how different observations you can make, and certainly that lines up very nicely with the poll results for sure.
Well, thank you. And so I think now's a perfect time to hand over to you, Richard, to take us through your top tips.
Lovely, thank you very much. So
just click share.
Hang on a second. Okay, as you can see, I'm an employee engagement person, not a techie person. So it's great to be here, and thank you very much for the invite. Today I want to talk to you, there's two parts really to it. First of all, I just want to set the scene and talk a little bit about my philosophy around employee engagement and culture, which is mostly based on kind of the experiences that I've had, and in particular the mistakes I've made throughout the years in this area. And then secondly, I want to take you through 6 top tips on employee engagement, and I'm really hoping that one of them is going to win the top prize, but we'll see. So to be honest, I'm on a bit of a mission, and my mission is to make the workplace an enjoyable place to be. And I know that might sound odd and a strange concept, but why is this important? I genuinely believe that it's important that people enjoy being at work. Then they'll be more productive, they'll be more engaged, they'll be more motivated. And actually that's really good. And that's good for people's well-being, and that's very good also for the company, because all the research definitely shows that if you have a motivated team, then that has a big impact on the bottom line. The opposite is true, of course. If you have disengaged people and the issues that causes, the negative impact and the time you need to spend on that also has a really big impact upon the organization. I also believe that you can't do engagement to people. You know, I've gone into companies and they've gone, there's the pool table, there's the nice coffee, we've got an employee of the month. Yeah, people should be engaged. Why aren't they? Yeah. People have a choice, don't they? Of course they have a choice. And for me, it's all about creating a culture which enables and fosters engagement. So I'm often asked, so what's the magic formula, Rich? How do you create this culture? What's the fairy dust, if you like? What's the magic bullet? Well, unfortunately, you know, I've traveled the world searching for this holy grail, if you like. And the bad news is there's not a magic formula. It really does take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of hard work, and a lot of hard lessons learned along the way on kind of from the mistakes that can be made. But I did come across in my travels one team that actually was the most engaged and motivated team that I think I've ever seen. And these were the London Games makers at the London Olympics. And their role in life was to make the spectator experience at the Olympics, you know, the best that they could possibly make it. And these guys were the most motivated. And I'm fascinated to know why this was. And I got talking to them and I did some research, and 2 things came out very clearly for me about what really was the essence to this. The first one was about being a part of the team, the camaraderie, the vibe. They said it was all great fun. They had a common goal. And there was a real emotional connection. And for me, this is a key part of engaging people. It's that having a sense of belonging. And of course, research shows that being connected is widely considered as a fundamental need. You know, we are social beings, and being part of a team indeed is really key to our well-being and also to our motivation. I mean, I call it the insider feeling, that feeling that you're very much a part of the company. The second thing that came out very clearly from talking to the games makers was a sense of, I'm a part of something, I'm a part of something bigger. And this is all about purpose. You know, this need to find a purpose in what we are doing, being in your work life or in your home life. And the games makers had a very clear and meaningful purpose. It was to make the London Olympics the best Olympics ever. And I think this is particularly pertinent for the situation we've been in this year, because I think now employees are really considering on reflection what's really important to them right now, and they need a sense of purpose. I'm sure you've come across the work of Simon Sinek, who's done a load of research in this area, and he says a lot of companies can tell you how they do it, they can tell you what they do, but they can't tell you the why. And it's the why that is the important part of why should your team put in that extra effort. So that is absolutely fundamental. During lockdown as well, I've been really thinking about life, work, and on reflection, working at Pure Planet has been probably the best job I've ever had. I enjoy it so much. I absolutely love it. And why is that? And I think for me, it's because I can be myself, and I can express my opinions. I can be my own personality, if you like. And I know in previous companies, I haven't particularly done that. So what really lies at the heart of this for me in terms of engagement is this trust and this feeling of being safe and this feeling of being trusted. And, going back thousands of years, our brains have evolved and designed to keep us safe. We like the feeling of being safe, which is particularly pertinent at this point of time as well. And I don't think you can actually perform at your best if you don't feel trusted and you don't feel safe. So I suppose the key question for me to ask is around trust is, what happens in your organization when somebody speaks up? Is that okay? Or are there ramifications? And that for me really underpins all this area of engagement. But of course, people are different. They behave differently. They have different ways of looking at things. They interpret things. Messages that go out can be interpreted in different ways, of course. They have different feelings. So where can you start with all this? And I think a really good start is to try and understand what really motivates your team, what really motivates your people. And the model I really like on motivation is really the model that Dan Pink has come up with. And I don't know if you've come across Dan Pink, but he wrote a book about 5 years ago called Drive. There's a lovely YouTube clip which lasts about 5 minutes, which is all animated in this style that you see, around this complex subject of motivation. It's kind of taking the Maslow theory hierarchical needs that I learned 30 years ago, bringing it completely up to date. And what he says is that there are 3 fundamental things that motivate people. And I always look at this model in terms of anything that I'm doing at Pure Planet and ask the question, is what we're doing, does this tick these 3 boxes? So are you giving your people autonomy? Are you giving people this? Are they in control of what they do in their everyday working life? And for example, at Virgin Mobile, one of the examples we did was we didn't have any scripts in the call center. So the customer service advisors could really talk to the customer and, with parameters, of course, but without a script. The second one is about expertise. So that's all about becoming a master in what you do. And so we're in the area now of personal development. And also closely allied to that is about that sense of achievement. So when you become an expert in something, that is closely allied to achievement. And then finally, back to Simon Sinek, which is all around this sense of purpose. Does your company, for example, have a very clear purpose? And that leads me on very neatly into the top 6 tips. When I sat down and Rachel told me about the brief and said what we really want is some 6 top tips, I wrote down everything I could think of, and actually I came up with probably about 66. And unfortunately, Rachel's given me a very clear brief, which is why I'm looking at my phone at the moment to see I'm on time. So I've kind of narrowed it down to 6, but it was such a difficult task. So here are my top 6. So the first one is very much around this common theme around purpose, and about people wanting to know the why, and people wanting to know why they should put in their discretionary effort. And this was the purpose at Virgin Mobile, very clear about making the customer happy. And then at Pure Planet, again, we have a very clear purpose. And indeed, people join us because of this. We are a sustainable company. We provide renewable energy to domestic customers in the UK. And that is a real driver for us. That is why the company was set up. And that is why, as I said, people join the company, because they want to give something back. And it's all around climate change and sustainable. And we do a lot of things around that to get the message out internally as well as externally. So for me, you know, it is having a very clear purpose. And if the company that you work for doesn't have a very clear purpose, or it's complicated, then my advice would be look at it at a team level and see what you can do in terms of what is your team purpose. You know, people join companies because of the purpose, and they stay and are motivated because of the purpose. The second one is around team and this sense of belonging. And this really does, for me, lie at the heart of Pure Planet. We're quite a small team. We employ about 100 people. We are all in one open plan office. We don't have any management offices, for example. And we really do try and spot opportunities for teamwork, be it bringing a project team together from different areas, or having a very flat hierarchy. So we don't have the classic employee-manager relationship within all of our teams. In our customer center, for example, and this might seem a bit odd, we don't have individual targets. It's a team target. We promote peer support. We give ownership of different processes to individuals, so that everybody else can go to that individual, and that's all part of interaction and getting people talking to each other on a team level. This has been particularly important during lockdown and when we've all gone virtual, and we've done a lot of things to keep people connected, checking in. I'm sure you've done all of this in your organizations. I think it's very easy for people to feel isolated when they work virtually. So one of my key jobs has been to check in with people on a really regular basis. And we've done virtual coffee meetings, we've done lots of team meetings, we've had a piano recital, we've even had a magic show, which is really interesting to execute when it's online. Show me a card, any card. So that was great fun. And all those kind of things, we've tried to keep the momentum going. So swiftly moving on to number 3, here's a quick quiz question for you. You don't need to add it into the chat box, but if you can think about what the answer is. Here's the answer. And when I saw this stat, and this is a stat from the Chartered Management Institute, I was amazed that people actually would much prefer a new manager than actually a salary rise. And for me, again, this is the key thing around engagement. It's around management style. And, you know, Marcus Buckingham's famous quote, people join an organization, but they leave a manager. And I think looking back on my career, that is so true. So my belief is that managers should be coaches. They should be there to guide. They should be there to support. They should be there to help. They're not there to tell you what to do. And again, this is a really key thing. And I would spend a lot of effort and a lot of time coaching and training up managers within organizations to be great people managers. I think people are promoted into these positions who might not necessarily be technically good at doing it, might not even want to do it, but have to, because that's the only way to get on in the organization. And companies do offer little support in this area as well. So invest in good line manager training would be my number 3.
I think we've got a poll there, Richard. Shall I launch that one?
Oh, I hope this doesn't encroach on my 18 minutes.
No, we'll. So we're asking, do the managers and leaders in your organisation understand how to engage their teams? So we've got yes, they're good at it. Yes, but they don't really do it. Or no. So we've just waiting to see. So what are you hoping might come out, Richard?
I suspect it will be yes, but they don't really do it. But having done this poll before, you do get a lot of no's. especially if you work in the IT world. Sorry, Mike.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
So I'm going to share the results. So yep, straight down the middle, 46% say yes, but they don't really do it. 32% say yes and they're good at it, and 22% say no. So very interesting results there, Richard.
Great, yeah, good to see that 32% was a yes and they're good at it. That's great to hear. So yeah, so let me move on. So number 4, I've titled Being Flexible. For us, that has really driven high commitment in our customer service advisors at Pure Planet, for example. We flexed and changed people's working hours, certainly during lockdown. We have a high degree of part-timers. And as I've said before, even before lockdown, people could work from home as well as working in the office. So giving people flexibility is really important. And actually, you know, people talk about the work-life balance. I don't think that exists. It's just all life now, isn't it? And we all try and fit it in different ways. And so giving people flexibility, but also understanding people's personal circumstances. Certainly during lockdown, we had a lot of people who had people of school age, and that was really challenging when the schools were closed in terms of incorporating that. Number 5, this is one of my favorites, if my screen will move on. So number 5 is very much along the lines of, I genuinely believe people go to work wanting to do a good job and wanting to be engaged and wanting to be trusted. But often it's what actually the company does that really does demotivate and disengage. So this is all about what I would call the rules. It's the way people are treated, it's the politics, it's the egos, it's the hierarchies. And I'm afraid to say, having worked in HR for over 30 years, I think now, HR can be the biggest culprit of setting the rules. You know, for example, how many of you have an employee handbook? How many of you can genuinely say when you read that employee handbook that actually it is just full of rules? It's full of words like you must do this and you need to do that. What message is that sending in terms of the trust element to your people? And I read a lot of employee handbooks when I go into organizations, and I can, you know, near enough tell what the culture is like of that organization just by reading the words and the tone and the way actually that it is laid out. You know, we need to trust people to do the right things. You know, for example, at Pure Planet, we don't have an employee handbook, we don't have any rules, and that does work because we trust people to do the things. We have unlimited paid holiday. That is a way that we trust people and people do the right thing. So ask yourself, when you look at things that you do within your organization, are those things motivating and engaging people? So for example, your bonus scheme, your annual appraisal scheme, your Rising Stars program, your Employee of the Month recognition program, hand on heart, are those actually motivating and engaging people, or actually are they demotivating? And those 4 examples, I would argue, often or not in companies, are a demotivator than a motivator because they're not executed in the right way.
The number 6 is all about communication. So this is about giving your people a voice. An oldie, but a goodie, I know. So this for me is all about asking for feedback. And of course, if you're asking for feedback, do genuinely listen and do take action if you can. So this for me as well, giving employees a voice is all part of that sense of belonging, being a part of the organisation and feeling a part of it. And of course, the other side of it is two-way. It's all about communicating what's going on within the organisation. And my advice there is be very transparent and honest about what's happening in the business and what the issues are. And of course, do bear in mind that when you're working virtually, that you need to work really hard to get that message out through lots of different channels. So those are my top 6. My last slide is just a thank you slide, and there's just some contact details on there. do link in, do drop a note and say hello. If you've got any questions, I'm sure we may field them during this webinar, but if you've got any queries or anything like that, then just do let me know. I'm always very happy to talk about culture and employee engagement. So thank you for your time. Sorry about the slight technical hitch.
Not
and
to
I'm looking
worry.
forward to hear from Mike.
Fab. Well, before we go into that, we are going to go to our top tips and questions. Slightly reordered everything. So if I just move that over so I can see. So I think this is from earlier. So Richard's presentation has given many highlights on what we're possibly doing wrong. So that was sent in to Kathy 11. And Karen said, I like what Richard said, there should be an impact on the bottom line. So Steve's got a question. What if your company has a sacrificial HR strategy? What can we do? Richard, I don't know whether you wanted to answer that one.
Sorry, so that again, a sacrificial, was it?
Yes.
I don't understand the question, sorry.
No worries. We'll, Steve, if you could put in the chat room a little bit more, we can get that sorted. So we've got a very long tip actually from Carly, who said, I've recently been promoted to training and quality supervisor, and during the first 4-week induction, I use Virtual Connect 4 and Battleships, Battlecar as I'm in the vehicle industry, to review things. We've learned, but also bring some fun into training. I also bring in phone a friend option, whereby if the trainee is stuck on a question, they can ask a fellow colleague who is fully trained and established in their role, which then also helps them feel more part of the team and get to know their colleagues. I also find it helps the trained staff feel empowered, knowing they're helping trainees. Richard, I think this is a great one for what you were saying about, getting a team camaraderie and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is back to making work enjoyable. Yeah, I think you have complete license to be creative, to do things differently, to make it fun. And that, in essence, that's the vibe, isn't it? That's why people want to go into the office. Not because they're being told to, it's because they want to go in. And it's all those elements. And that sounds like a really great approach during induction training, just to make it lively, make it interesting.
Yeah, and empowering the staff that are still there, who've been there for a while, to share their knowledge and not just all be about the initial training side. Carly's definitely after the winning tip. She sent in, we've all heard of exit interviews. However, something I've picked up along my way working in call centres for 15 years is stay interviews. This is usually an informal setting, like a canteen area, private of course, if possible, just having a coffee with the employee and asking them how they're doing, what they're enjoying, what they might not be enjoying, and asking for their input and ideas, reminding them that their thoughts and ideas are important to the company to keep them engaged and motivated. Mike, I really like this one. I think.
Yeah, and it's your most valuable asset is your employee, and to be able to kind of like just get that sort of heartbeat feedback from them, I think is very valuable. I think the important part will be though the actual you're listening, kind of acknowledging what the kind of feedback is, but then actually doing something about it, and often that can become tricky. So having kind of received, if you like, some consistency perhaps across the team, communicating that to my sort of peers and managers to sort of say, hey, we got this good idea from the floor, to actually turn that then into a sort of okay, let's take that idea and bring it into action. Sometimes that often stumbles. So hopefully we can kind of make it happen, and then that would be very encouraging, I think, to bring the kind of feedback back to say, well, look, we listened, we understood, and we made change. That would be terrific. Sometimes it's a bit more difficult, but great idea.
And Richard, I'm sure you would probably agree that, exit interviews, by then it's almost too late to bring them back on board. Getting those ideas or suggestions from them before they're kind of leaving is a better idea.
Yeah, I've always thought it's really bizarre that the first time you speak to somebody is when they've resigned. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, stay interviews, it's a good expression for them. And I just think that's just the way you do things. You don't make a thing of it and say we're doing a stay interview. It's like that's just normal day-to-day working life. We want to talk to people. We want to know what they're doing, how they're feeling. I personally sit down with every employee at Pure Planet once every 3 months, doing exactly that. And it's, as I said on slide number 6, it's all about giving employees a voice.
Perfect, thank you. So Jenna sent in a tip saying, I'm new to the company and one of the first things I've done is I've created different levels of CSRs to motivate the staff to achieve the goals I've set regarding quality customer service. This allows even the most seasoned CSRs to find things they can improve on and present the opportunity for wage increase and a leadership position. So we've had Steve come back in the chat room. Thank you very much. So he asked about the sacrificial HR strategy. Apparently it's on recruitment and employee turnover versus engagement helping retention. Does that help at all, Richard, with what can they do?
So I suppose from my point of view, I mean, I've worked in lots of different HR teams, and there are different ways that you can execute HR, or the company wants different ways. For me, if you're hiring and firing and that's why you're there, then that for me is not the right approach. The HR team are there to build the culture, to enhance the culture, and look at all these areas of employee engagement. I'm not sure that's answering the question.
Not to worry.
But I think from like an observation I would make is it starts to make me feel like I want the agent to feel like they're a commodity, or I'm forcing the advisors to be like a commodity, and therefore I'm not actually interested in you. And my kind of expectation of you is that you're going to either like bugger off in 2 weeks, or you know what I mean? Like it seems to foster quite an unfortunate sort of circumstance, really, which I think is kind of tricky to break, and if like agents have power, they can just walk away, right? And they can walk in somewhere else. And, I suppose to break that sort of cycle would be something to sort of really focus on and try and make a change, perhaps in this current changed climate. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. I think it's now a perfect opportunity to hand over to you.
Excellent. Okay, super. So I like the subject very much, but I've kind of taken obviously a technology approach, because that's why I'm here, coming from Genesis, like a provider, if you like, of tech into this space. I wanted to try and sort of, bringing up 4 different ideas. I kind of feel that the tech is changing quite a lot at the moment, and it's being massively accelerated. So I kind of wanted to kind of bring a bit of vendor honesty to the webinar, if that's okay, Rachel. I'm going to be confessional today. But in the context of, for me, the sort of like the 4 personas. So we have the persona of the advisor, the supervisor, a center manager, and executive. These 4 players, if you will, in all of our lives every day, I believe have challenges around engagement today. And I think a good part of that is around tech. So I'm going to just sort of like share some ideas, which has got a kind of consistent theme through it, and hopefully it'll resonate as we get to the other side. What I would say is that the COVID events have changed everything, and for some brands that's actually worked out in a very fortunate way, and for other brands it's been very unfortunate. And we're all wrestling to kind of figure ourselves out, and hence this particular webinar and the sort of steer it's taking so far. But with regards to like engaging your people and to like empowering your people, what I know is, and what I hear from my customers is that from the advisor, it's got to be easy. It's got to be easy to learn. It's got to be easy to use. And we kind of know this, but then it's not often that we actually do it. Okay, which I think is kind of where the earlier sort of tip was going. Helping me with sort of like canned responses and scripting is good. Like Richard said, we don't want to have a scripting in their brand. Cool, that's fine. But having a guide for an agent is always useful. Being able to handle lots of different work types, being able to work from anywhere is kind of critical now, right? I mean, that was an option before. It was something that's been available for, I can remember, Rachel, we did a webinar together in 2011 around working from home. And,
yes, we did.
I mean, how long ago was that? So in that context, this stuff is doable. It's just we're kind of not being forced to do it, which is very interesting. But then this notion then of being separate. So the sort of idea of team chat, collaborating, the gamification ideas of being able to sort of like get the little group to compete as a little group and compete against other groups, I think is kind of good practice. But again, it's kind of it's a bit more tricky. It kind of involves more sort of like costs maybe. Tools should be these days friendly, easy to use, sort of like designed for purpose. I would say a lot of the tools that we're using today are not that. If I'm an agent today and I'm kind of working in this environment, I expect to be able to kind of book my time. It's starting to look a bit like Uber, but that might be okay. That might be something which we'll be doing a lot more of in the future around my sort of providing work to the brand as opposed to the brand contracting with me. Maybe it's a rebellion against the 0-hour contract effect. Okay, so from that perspective, we're thinking about the new tomorrow, and it could be very interesting. What I can say is that, in the past, we would sort of be able to take a sort of a stroll through the contact center and make some observations about how things are going, get a kind of a heartbeat from the sort of like the comments that you hear the agents talk to in the context of their customers, and sort of get the sort of a feel, if you like, as to how things are going from a supervisor perspective. Of course, I can't do that anymore. And therefore, what do we do to kind of compensate and help? And certainly being visible is very, very important as a supervisor. Even though I am remote and everybody's remote, we have to be available, we have to be contactable. I need to be able to kind of quality manage everything now, not so much a sort of a 2% or a 0.5%. I kind of got to do it everywhere and everything. And that's kind of okay because we've got new tools to help us do that, like AI and stuff, and that's nice. But if you will, the exceptions really are the areas where just give me those, Mike. Take care of the mundane stuff. If the things that we expect have been done, great, take it. But if there's something exceptional, give it to me and I'll work on it, because I need to have more time to be kind of sitting with, albeit virtually, coaching, remotely listening, guiding, helping develop. They're the things I think which the advisor needs, which is the maximum value a supervisor can bring, I think, to that remote advisor. And certainly then again, what does that look like? There should be sort of like, simple tools. Being able to kind of transcribe everything is very real. It's very, very powerful. It's kind of, it just solves all the debate. It's kind of like, this was said, here it is, look at it, listen to it. And from that context, being able to then sort of help the individual become stronger, become better, and to help the brand change what their strategy is based upon, customer sentiment and feedback is very, very powerful and very, very valuable. But again, like, not easy to do. And from the perspective of, if you like, where we've come from, kind of every vendor is sort of saying, yes, we can do this, but the way it's done is quite clumsy and quite challenging. So keep that in mind. As we kind of move through the 4 personas, now the guy who kind of runs the center itself, things are starting to get a bit tense here, because for this guy, we're challenged with where, several months ago, voice was very much the majority of traffic coming into my center. Today, it's actually digital is the volumes that are swamping my sort of center. And the voice guys are kind of idle. So from that perspective, these dynamics are real and they're starting to sort of settle in. And now I'm in a situation where I'm heavily under-licensed for some functionality and heavily over-licensed for other functionality. And suddenly I'm massively compromised because I'm trying to sort of maintain cost management. I can see and I can feel the effects of customer sat, because the people who should be where they should be are no longer, and the people who aren't being fed work. So there's frustration, if you like, throughout the operation as we try and manage these odd circumstances. But things like unexpected costs don't help me. Bringing automation is very, very critical, but if it's going to be clumsy and heavy lifting and multi-thousand-pound projects, it just becomes off-putting, really. So from that perspective, being able to kind of bring these kind of effects to a center manager is important, let alone this one, which kind of like everybody is mindful of and respectful of, and we must all adhere to, but actually is probably the most scary one of all, because these are the ones where I can get sued, your brand can get sued. And by the way, those sort of your warning signs are quite real, and we have case studies galore all across the UK and throughout the world of where compromising consumer data is no longer allowed. So from that perspective, moving on to the last persona, the executive, and this is kind of just starts to kind of wrap up the theme, hopefully. this is the guy I kind of feel where, okay, so, you know, the advisors are giving me feedback, the supervisors kind of made some comments, and then the center manager is sort of saying, look, Johnny, this is the sort of situation. Well, for me as a leader of this organization, I'm kind of wrestling with, well, why is it all so difficult? And why do we have to have another upgrade? And, you know, you've been promising this to me for the last 6 months and it still hasn't happened. And, you know, when I talk to my peers at an exec level with other brands and some of my competitors even, they seem to be further along than we've ever been. So from that perspective, you know, I'm starting to feel as an exec that, you know, I'm hearing it again, but we're still not being able to make progress. And really what we have here, if you like, is, you know, like a bit of your vendor honesty. If you look at all players in this space, all tech vendors, if you like, acquire technology over time. And it's what they do with those acquisitions that is important. And that's what I'm trying to highlight here today. So even though I've kind of, you know, purchased a workforce management tool and a recording tool and an analytics tool, that's all been very helpful. The fact that they don't actually work together is the problem. And some of the issues that we saw with, you know, the advisor working from home, the supervisor being able to, you know, analyze everything, the center manager wrestling with silos of people who can't get work because he's over or under license. They are all the effects, if you will, of like old tech. And from that perspective, you kind of got to get, you know, the brands who are the brands for the future are the ones who are recoding their old tech into modern cloud fabrics. And by God, it's costly, it's time consuming, but it's critical. And the effects, if you like, of doing it are the kind of feedback we get from customers during the COVID, where I'm on the cloud, working from home for my entire operation of, you know, 2,000 agents was easy. Another customer down the street didn't have that kind of capability, and they're still struggling to try and reorganize themselves technically to meet their customer demands. So this is very, very real, everybody, and very, very important. So just the last slide really that I have is kind of like a summary slide. This is feedback, if you like, from leadership out there as customers. And, you know, like the feedback is quite simple. You know, I'm a decision maker, give me numbers that are realistic that I can make decisions against. And, you know, it's quite straightforward. Give me the reliability, keep the platform future orientated. You know, stop this idea of I must opt for an upgrade. Those days are gone. If you're forced into that scenario, break away from your vendor and go to like a proper cloud solution and be real about that, because it's the only way you can bring the empowerment tools for your workforce. You know, that engagement effect is being compromised, I believe, by the tech. You know, things like look out for online, you know, all-in-one, you know, being able to buy it, build it, you know, bring your own capability is very important. But that notion of continuous innovation without upgrades is the real winner, really. And hosted does not mean cloud. Okay, everybody, be clear about that. If somebody is providing you a solution that says it's cloud, ask them where the cloud is. Okay, I need to know where my code is going to be sitting. And often you'll find it's in somebody's shed that they're renting and they're sort of managing some space from. That's not cloud. Okay, so be very, very precise on that, and you know, work with Forrester, Gartner, those kind of guys to help you and give you the right advice, because it's quite of a critical decision, really. Okay, so that's my section. Rachel, I hope that was helpful and brought some interesting concepts to the webinar.
Brilliant, thank you very much for that. So we're just going to put up a quick poll. So let me just launch that and ask, would you like to see a demonstration of the Genesis solution? Thanks very much, Mike. Some brilliant takeaways that I've got was that you can't walk past an agent's desk anymore. You know, work from home has changed how you manage employees. So think outside the box for new engagement ideas, and also use technology to improve engagement. You know, chat is a great one. I know that we spoke about having, you know, Friday drinks and different rooms for different things. And then also, you know, gamification, rewards instant feedback to bring the fun back into the workplace for motivation and engagement. So thank you very much for that. So back to the top tips. I think, Richard, we've got you back on video. So so we've got an opinion in from Sunny, who said he totally agrees with you, Richard. We shouldn't underestimate the power of fun within engagement strategies. Gone are the days where it seemed as a waste of time. Having fun can transform workplaces, improve productivity, boost performance, and help you recruit better people and retain the stars you've already got. Richard, happy with that one?
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Fab. So we've got a tip in from Bastian who said, to get the best out of your staff, you need to have a true sense of camaraderie. There we go. Which, Richard, another thing that you mentioned is that it's all about having a sense of belonging, being part of the team, everything like that. So brilliant. So Karen sent in a tip saying, create an online handbook of remote engagement ideas for managers to implement, and can be themed as well by month. So October Ugly Sweater Contest, not just for Christmas, but for Halloween. Richard, what are your thoughts on, that type of handbook?
I'd like a copy of it when it's completed. Thank you.
There you go,
Yeah,
Karen.
I mean, anything like that, I think is great. Giving people a steer and guidance on things, and part of this whole exercise, and of course today is sharing top tips. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, some organisations that'll work and some won't, but that's not the point. It's about thinking of new creative ways to keep the momentum up, if you like.
Yeah. So Jenna said, we have EIT, which is employee input meetings, where a representative from each department offers ideas and solutions for issues within their department faces. It provides a sense of ownership for our staff and makes them feel like their voice is heard. Mike, what are your thoughts on that? You're nodding your head.
No, I do like it, and but as long, Jenna, as the feedback is listened to, responded to, and change. I can feel the change, if you like, as the provider of the feedback.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? It's got to be a full loop of progress. Yeah. Otherwise, okay, well, thanks, Jenna, for listening. But actually, what happened 6 months later? Did we change, or are we still,
yeah,
saying the same thing? That's my only question.
I think even with bad ideas, you still have to acknowledge them and show that employees are being listened to, rather than just thanks. I think there was a image of almost the feedback going straight into the shredder, which you need to stop.
Yes.
So we've got a tip in from Cindy who said, management needs to respect and support their staff, give them the training, tools and support to do their job, select staff who are proud of the company they work for and respect their customers. It can't just be a job. Your attrition rate is a great clue into how you're doing. Richard, I don't know whether you're still in the background. No, well, we'll keep going. So Kristen said, listen to your team and ask for feedback and for their opinion on how they think things are working and if they feel there should be any changes, which I think is a good one. Daniela said, we've created a virtual buddy system through standing VCs and chat rooms that can allow people to just turn to a colleague for a question, advice or chat. Great response from the team. Yeah, Mike, I think that when you've said that you guys at Genesis have done things like that.
Yeah, and it's very simple, but it's very, very effective. And it's like having a little WhatsApp group, or a little sort of team group, which just like is never ending. So like as people are like logging on and logging off, the group kind of keeps going, and you can kind of sort of search up from comments that were made before. So that's kind of helpful. But I think there are great ways to kind of keep that remote camaraderie. Even though I'm sort of physically separate, I am sort of virtually together. And I suppose we're kind of, I think we're being challenged, if you like, as tech people to try and make that richer somehow. Yep. And but certainly it's helpful to have that kind of group effect.
Right, let's try and whiz through a few. So Claire said, involve people who do the work in projects to get buy-in, rather than using a separate team. They are more likely to know what needs to improve such change than those looking in from the outside. They can also help to champion any change. So Karen sent in another one. So staycation photos. This is a simple way to engage your team. Ask your team to send management or a designated team member their photos. Compile the photos into a PowerPoint slide deck and share with the team. Yeah, I think this is a great one, Mike, especially, what are you doing? I think a lot of people have sent in, what does your workspace look like? What are you up to this weekend, and sharing them. And I think that brings it.
What is your real background?
Yes, this is really where I am.
Indeed, I know, but the virtual backgrounds kind of have a branded effect.
Yes, yes. So Carly said, in current times, finances for companies can be difficult, but rewarding or recognising employees is still as important as ever. We often run buzz days whereby we will set short, sharp targets, i.e. the first one to take 10 calls wins, etc., and their prize is 15 minutes of owed time. That is not only rewarding to the employee to leave early on, say, a Friday, but also is of no cost to the company. The employee can either take that 50 minutes that week, or they can bank it and build it up over time to leave even earlier. It goes down very well with our teams. So we've got a question in from Crystal, who says, how can you engage team members in a call centre when service levels are at risk and there is minimal time for them to get off the phones? Unfortunately, we've lost Richard again. So Mike, a question for you.
Yeah, and like, so is it feels like a resourcing issue, Crystal. So from that perspective, I appreciate, resourcing issue is kind of ever present. But from that perspective, whether it's, more skill, like knowledge training perhaps across the team, so they can pick up these wider sort of peaks to avoid this sort of compromise on service level. But I kind of get the sense here that investment is needed to kind of beef up the team, perhaps to accommodate more volume. And from that perspective, even though there's the numbers are quite black and white. If you need more, you got to be able to feed to your manager and say, look, the numbers are quite clear. For us to meet the service level, I need more. So be clear on that for sure.
Fab. So I think we've got time for one more tip. So from Laura, who said, engage with your employees on a personal level. This doesn't mean you need to know everything about their personal life. This means whenever you reward agents, make sure it's something personal to them. Get to know them and how they're motivated and like to be rewarded. Don't just assume one size fits all. So thank you very much. I mean, they're still flying in, as you can see, so many tips.
Yeah, thanks so much.
So while you're in the chat room, if you could just write in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about the webinar? And today's winning tip comes from Karen. Well done. So she said, we have an engagement committee that is open to the associates to be part of, and they're divided into 4 pillars: well-being, networking, community, and environment. We also provide a list of virtual volunteer opportunities. Each associate has 8 hours of volunteer hours they can use and can be in increments of 1, 2, 3, or 4 hours. So well done. We will be...
No, fantastic. I was going to say just fantastic. I like it. Love it.
Okay, yeah. So Karen, we will be in touch with you after the webinar. Just a reminder, we have a survey. If you could complete that, just gives us a chance to get some feedback. And reminder, we have taken a recording of today's webinar, and that will be available later on this afternoon on this link. We are back next week with our next webinar, so you can register here. And I just wanted to say thank you to our brilliant speakers, to Richard Roberts. Unfortunately, his internet has been not very good today, so thank you for his presentation. And also to Mike Murphy from Genesis. Thank you for sticking with me.
Okay, Rachel, thank you. And shame about Richard, but hopefully we can get the full attention from him the next time, or the full presence of him the next time.
Yeah, brilliant. And we look forward to seeing you again next week on our webinar. Thank you very much all. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.